Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, December the 3rd. We're going to take a first look at this 7-game NBA slate for Tuesday, run position by position, run through it on Draftkings. We'll talk about some guys that stand out to me on Yahoo as well, just looking at this slate the night before. Before we get started, want to let you guys know, if you did not catch my video yesterday, either my Monday Night Football Showdown video or my NBA video for Monday, I did make a pretty big announcement that my Patreon has officially launched. There is a link down in the description where you can check out my page. It's patreon.com/DFS by Noah. Link is down in the description. You can see all the premium content that I have available. I have a written article that I do for every NBA slate Monday through Friday. My article for Monday's slate, I believe it was about 10 pages long. It's going to be something I put a lot of time into. I spent about 3 to 4 hours writing it on Monday. So I'm going to have a written article where I do like pretty much a breakdown of each position, a more in-depth breakdown, talking about some of my favorite plays. All this content that I put on Patreon will be up to date with all the latest injury news. The videos I put out on YouTube will continue to be like first look videos. But I'll have that article. I'll have a roster construction video that I'll upload around 4 o'clock that'll be live on Patreon that you can watch if you do choose the package that comes with that roster construction video. Pretty much where I just talk through roster construction for today's slate, how I feel like I'm going to be building out my lineup, where are the chalky plays, where can we look for maybe potential pivots and maybe some chalky plays that we should be fading. Also, I will have the updated core plays over on Patreon that I will post around 5:30 Eastern time, and that I will continue to update as we get to lock with the latest injury news. Also, there is a Discord chat that you can join if you sign up through the Patreon, where I'll be in there throughout the day along with every other Patreon subscriber. It's going to be a community filled of people who enjoy playing DFS. You can bounce ideas off of one another. You can always ask me questions if you want to ask me questions. So definitely check out the stuff I have available on Patreon now, the exclusive content I have on Patreon. Link is down in the description. It'll be the first link you see. Before we do get started with the video, guys, like always, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like. Make sure you subscribe if you have not yet. A lot of you guys that watch my videos are not subscribed, so would appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. You can also follow me on Twitter if you haven't done that yet, at DFS by Noah. Feel free to give me a follow over on Twitter. But let's go ahead and run through this Tuesday slate. We'll start off at point guard. Before we start off with point guard, just want to talk about the stud options that we have on today's slate, kind of like just like the 9K and above guys. So we got Harden for $12,500 against the Spurs, Luka for $11,300 against the Pelicans, LeBron $10,200 against Denver, and then Anthony Davis $9,600 against Denver. So just looking at the studs today, I mean, Luka really stands out given his matchup against the Pelicans. Right now, this game does have the highest total on the slate if we just look at spreads and totals as of now. As I'm recording this Monday night, Dallas-New Orleans has a 233.5 total with a very close 3.5 point spread. So we got a high scoring and competitive game here in Dallas, or between Dallas and New Orleans, which is obviously what we want to target for NBA DFS. So really good spot for Luka Doncic. He stands out as one of the top studs, just looking at this slate the night before, at least in my eyes. But then you have LeBron and Davis. LeBron and AD are both way too cheap in my opinion. I mean, it's a tough matchup having to go into Denver to face a really good Nuggets team that plays slow, is really good defensively. But LeBron and AD have just been so consistent. They've been the highest usage players on this Lakers team by a wide margin. These guys both have like over 30% usage rates this season. So LeBron and AD stand out on DraftKings just given their price, but I think for pure upside, Luka Doncic is really in a smash spot, and he's the guy that we'll start off with at point guard. I do prefer him over James Harden today. On DraftKings, there's a $1,200 difference. Like, I would just much rather have Doncic. He probably projects better than Harden, and he's cheaper, and it's a better matchup. So he's the stud that I want to pay up for on the slate. One thing to note that he is small forward eligible on DraftKings, so I honestly think you should probably plug him in as small forward because that's probably a position that's not as deep, and since you can play Luka there, I like playing Luka at small forward. On Yahoo, I mean, it's close between Luka and Harden, only a $3 difference. Harden at 58, Luka at 55. Then you got AD at 52, LeBron at 51. Luka's still going to be my top stud on Yahoo, and if there's a lot of value that opens up, I'm definitely going to be jamming him into a ton of my lineups on Tuesday. I will update you guys over on Patreon with my full updated core plays as I take a deeper dive into the slate, but as of now, I mean, there's some decent value that I like, so I think I can get Luka into the core. I do like this spot for him a lot, obviously. I mean, this is a This is a Pelicans team that we know plays extremely fast. They're top 5 in pace this season. So this is a pretty good pace-up spot for the Mavericks. They're one of the worst defensive teams as well. They're towards the bottom of the league in defensive rating. So love Luka here. I mean, he's doing everything for the Mavericks so far this season. I don't know why I closed out of Court IQ. I didn't mean to do that. I was going to pull up Court IQ just so you guys could see Luka's numbers. I mean, I've shown it multiple times in all my videos where I've kind of been on Luka. His numbers this season with the Mavericks are just absolutely insane. Has a crazy high usage rate. It's close to 40%, 36.2% usage rate for Luka so far this season with the Mavericks, averaging 1.67 fantasy points per minute. Smash spot. Love Luka today. He's one of the best plays on the slate, in my opinion. It's just a matter of if you can find a way to fit him in, and I'll talk more about that in my roster construction video on Patreon, and I'll talk more about that in my article as well. But now let's just run through some of the other point guard plays that we have on this slate. So Damian Lillard's in a tough spot against the Clippers, but his price really stands out on DraftKings. He's down to 8,400. He has not been that great just as of late. I mean, he hasn't shown a ton of upside, just at least like the last few games. Like his last 50-point game was against the Hawks on November the 10th, and since then he's been under 50 DraftKings points in every game. If you're playing him at 8,400, you need him to go for like 50 DraftKings points at least to be a good tournament play at this price. Obviously, Lillard has that kind of upside. I think he's going to be in play for me today, just given the price tag. He's not going to be a core play by any means, but if I'm playing like Paul George or something and I want to run it back with someone from the Trailblazers, I think Lillard does stand out just given his price tag on DraftKings. But like in this mid-range, I mean, there's not much that stands out to me here. Just looking like 7K and 6K, I think there's a lot of viable plays if we go 6K and below. So Markelle Fultz is in a really good spot against the Wizards. This is a Wizards team that is just kind of similar to the Pelicans. They play extremely fast. They're not good defensively. They've been one of the worst defensive teams against point guards. Makes a lot of sense because Isaiah Thomas is not a good defender. One of the worst defenders just in the league. Fultz has actually been playing pretty well this season, especially as of late. He got 30 minutes his last game against the Warriors, 34 DraftKings points. That's the most minutes we've seen him play like all season is 30 minutes. They're slowly starting to give him more minutes just game by game. I imagine he plays probably 30 minutes here. He projects pretty well for his salary, especially given the pace-up spot against the Wizards and the really good matchup. So Markelle Fultz is firmly in play, but I do prefer Lonzo Ball for just $100 cheaper. I really like Lonzo here at $5,400 against the Mavericks. I like him a lot on Yahoo as well. Him and Fultz for the same price. They're both $18. I think I would slightly prefer Lonzo, but it's very close between the two. I think both of them are very solid plays today. But just looking at Lonzo here, he did move into the starting lineup in their last game against OKC. Kendrick Williams was out that game, so they started Lonzo at point guard, Drew at the 2, and then they played Redick at the 3, Ingram at the 4, and then they started Jahlil Okafor at center. I imagine that's probably the same starting lineup they go with today, and we see Lonzo start again at point guard. He got 33 minutes, which is the most he's played since returning from injury. He was pretty productive as well, putting up 31 DraftKings points in that game against the Thunder. I'm projecting him to play 30-plus minutes again at $5,400. This price is just too cheap for Lonzo if he's going to be playing over 30 minutes. I believe he's averaging over a point per minute this season with the Pelicans. I can check that real quick just so I can confirm that. But I believe Lonzo's been a point per minute player just so far this season. We'll go ahead and run the query run it real quick just so we can see. So let's see, in 330 minutes this season, Lonzo has about a 20% usage rate with the Pelicans. Yeah, 0.96 fantasy points per minute, so about a point per minute. If you project him for 30, 32 minutes, he probably projects for about 30 to 32 DraftKings points. So that's a pretty good play at only $5,400. Definitely stands out just points per dollar wise on both sides. I do like him quite a bit today at the point guard position, especially now that he's starting. I think his minutes are going to be a lot more secure, and just his minutes floor is going to be a lot higher as well. But under 5K for point guard values, I mean, there's not really much that I like for value on this slate. There's not much that stands out to me just looking at this slate the night before. I don't think there's any injuries at point guard that's going to open up value. I mean, like Goran Dragic is going to be out, so maybe like Kendrick Nunn, Justice Winslow, one of those two guys will see a few more minutes. But both of those guys are going to take back seats to Jimmy Butler. We've seen even with Winslow playing like 30 minutes lately, he's just not very productive when he plays alongside Jimmy Butler, even though he's been coming off the bench. It's still hard to trust Justice Winslow here. I mean, with Dragic out, you probably project Winslow for low 30s in minutes, Still, though, I mean, he's not going to be like a very productive player when he's playing alongside Jimmy Butler. It's not really that good of a matchup either against the Raptors. He's a fine value, but not going to be a core play for me by any means today. Let's go ahead and run through the shooting guard position now. So at shooting guard, I don't really see myself going to any of the top options here, like Kawhi, Brad Beal. I don't think these guys are going to be core plays for me. I'm not going to be paying up for James Harden today. I do prefer Luka for cheaper. So shooting guard's kind of similar to point guard. Like if you're not paying up at the top for like Luka, I mean, you can't play Luka at shooting guard, but if you're not going to the top, there's some good mid-range options that I see. Like you got Markelle Fultz that you can play at this position, who I like quite a bit. Lou Williams kind of stands out just given his price. He does feel a little bit too cheap at just $6,400. I mean, Lou Will's never going to be like a cash play by any means, especially now that he's playing alongside Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. His usage rate is obviously going to take a big hit, but still, you're probably going to get about 30 minutes from Lou Will in competitive games this season. I mean, it's a pretty good pace-up spot here against the Trailblazers. Portland does rank top 10 in pace. Right now, the Clippers, I believe they're bottom in the league. Like, if I can see real quick, let's see where the Clippers are. The Clippers are actually playing relatively fast this season, which is kind of surprising. So you do have two top 10 teams in pace here between the Clippers and the Trailblazers. I imagine this game has a high total. Yeah, it has a 229 total, just right there behind Dallas, New Orleans at 233. So there's definitely going to be some viable plays from this game. Lou Will in tournaments makes plenty of sense, especially now that his price is $6,400, which does feel a little bit too cheap for Lou Will, given that the guy has a ton of upside if he's knocking down his shots. But I want to talk about Josh Hart at this position, shooting guard. You can play him at small forward as well. So Josh Hart is $5,300 on DK. He played 33 minutes in their last game against OKC. He did come off the bench in that game, but he did wind up closing out the game. I believe it was over J.J. Redick, if I'm not mistaken. If we just look at the Pelicans' rotation in their last game against OKC, they went with the starting lineup of Lonzo, Drew, J.J. Redick, Brandon Ingram, and Jahlil Okafor. Josh Hart came off the bench. He was kind of like the sixth man in that game. He did sub in for Lonzo about 3 minutes or 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Played a pretty good stint in the second quarter, subbed out for a few minutes, then closed out the second quarter. He subbed in about halfway through the third quarter, and then he played the entire fourth quarter. J.J. Redick didn't touch the floor till towards the end of the fourth quarter. I mean, I feel most nights, especially if Hart's playing well off the bench, he will close out games over J.J. Redick. Even if Redick closes out games over Hart still should be looking at about 30 minutes off the bench. With no Kendrick Williams, no Derek Favors, that's just going to open up a lot of minutes in the front court. They can move Hart around. I mean, they can play him at the 2, they can play him at the 3. They could probably honestly play him at the 4, depending on who. I mean, I don't know if that would work against Dallas, especially if you have Porzingis at the 4. But they can move Hart around, play him at the 2 or the 3. He should be looking at about 30 minutes off the bench. He's been pretty productive this season with the Pelicans. Just when he gets the minutes, we've seen he has the upside for 30, 35, close to 40 DraftKings points. Kind of similar to Lonzo. I think Josh Hart's just too cheap for the minutes that he's going to get in this game off the bench. So I like him a lot on both sides. You can target him on Yahoo as well. He's at a pretty weak small forward position. Yahoo, or at least small forward on Yahoo, the position's usually always tough. So I do like Hart quite a bit at $17. You can definitely target him over there as well. We'll finish out the shooting guard position real quick. So I do want to talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, he's a fine play on DraftKings. I have more interest in him on Yahoo. He's in a really good spot, though, against the Pelicans. This is a pace-up spot for the Mavericks facing the Pelicans. We've seen, like in fast-paced games, Tim Hardaway can have a lot of success. He had a really good game against the Suns on November the 29th, put up 35 DraftKings points in 36 minutes. Against Houston, he played 38 minutes in that game, had 49 DraftKings points. I mean, this feels like a spot where Tim Hardaway can have a big game, especially at $4,600 on DK. I mean, he's firmly in play at that price tag. I do prefer him over on Yahoo, where he's still really, really cheap. He's at small forward. He's one of the better small forward values, kind of along with Josh Hart. I like Hardaway a lot at $14. Definitely a guy I'm going to be targeting quite a bit on both sides. I think he's firmly in play on DraftKings as well. This just feels like a spot where Tim Hardaway can have success. Fast-paced game. There's going to be a lot of shot opportunities. And that's what Tim Hardaway thrives in. He thrives in fast-paced games where he can get a lot of shots up. We know that Luka and Porzingis are going to be like the two high-usage players on this Mavericks team, but Hardaway can still get some shots up. And now that he's starting and playing with the first unit, his minutes are pretty secure right now. They do feel pretty secure. I mean, he's played at least 30 minutes in 4 or 5 straight games. As long as the game stays competitive, you're probably getting mid-30s in minutes from THJ. So he's a value play at shooting guard that I see, but that's probably it for the shooting guard position. in terms of value. So let's run through small forward now real quick. I talked about it at the beginning of the video. I do think that LeBron is too cheap today on DraftKings at 10,200. It's not a good matchup against the Nuggets, but 10-2 for LeBron. He does stand out as one of the better stud options. I'm going to try to get up to Luka today on this slate because I think Luka just has a ton of upside in his matchup. But, I mean, I'm fine dropping down to LeBron just given how cheap he is. And, I mean, we know LeBron has triple-double upside. The dude's having a great season. He's been great for fantasy this season. Pretty much all past years, I mean, LeBron gives you a 45, 50-point floor just about every night. I feel very safe with LeBron. Luka probably gives you more upside, but obviously LeBron's a very safe play, even in a tough matchup. But if I'm not going to LeBron at the top, I think there's some viable plays in this mid-range. DeMar DeRozan against the Rockets, I think, makes plenty of sense here. He only played 25 minutes their last game against Detroit, but that was due to blowout. I mean, he was still productive, had 30 DK points in 25 minutes. You're going to get pretty much 34 to 36 minutes from DeMar DeRozan in competitive games. There is a chance that LaMarcus Aldridge misses this game. I would imagine that boosts DeMar DeRozan's usage percentage. I can actually look that up real quick just to confirm that. So let me go to the Spurs, and we'll take LaMarcus Aldridge off the floor. Not sure if we're going to get much of a sample size, but we can at least check it just to see if DeRozan does benefit. I mean, I imagine he would since Aldridge is like one of the higher usage players on the team. So this season with LaMarcus Aldridge off the floor, DeMar DeRozan does have a 31.9% usage rate and is averaging 1.27 fantasy points per minute. He's played 141 minutes with Aldridge off the floor. He does see almost a 5% bump in his usage rate, so definitely would have some interest in DeMar DeRozan today if LaMarcus Aldridge does wind up sitting this game. This should be a competitive game. It should be close. It's a pace-up spot for the Spurs as well, facing the Rockets, so DDR going to be on my radar at the small forward position. But other small forward plays, I think a guy like Davis Bertans is still a fine value, 5,300. Coming off the bench, he's going to play probably 28 to 30 minutes most nights. Mo Wagner is questionable for this game, which could open up more minutes in the front court for a guy like Bertans. We saw Rui play a ton of minutes, and we're going to talk about him when we get to power forward. He played like 40 minutes in their most recent game. Just like I said, I mean, Bertans is going to get 27 to 29, close to 30 minutes most nights. He's going to be a pretty risky player because he's pretty shot dependent. I mean, if he's not knocking down his threes, you're not really going to get that great of a game from Bertans. He's not really going to chip in much with the peripherals, although he has had some double-digit rebounding games this season, a couple of games with 8 rebounds. But against the Magic, I mean, it's not the best matchup. The Magic are a pretty solid defensive team. They do play relatively slow, but Bertans is still really cheap. 5,300, and just the value on the slate is just kind of lacking, at least looking at this slate the night before. You got Winslow that you could take a shot on, could see some more minutes here, even coming off the bench with Dragic out. There could be more minutes for Winslow. THJ, I talked about, I do like him quite a bit as a value play for 4,600. But I think that's probably it for small forward. I think that we pretty much covered everything I like at this position, at least just looking at the slate the night before. So let's go ahead and run through power forward. So at the top, very similar to LeBron. I talked about it at the beginning of the video. Anthony Davis is too cheap today, 9,600 against the Nuggets. Not a great matchup, but AD for 9,600 is too cheap of a price tag. This guy should be 10,500 most nights, if not close to 11,000. He's very similar to LeBron in that he gives you pretty much a 45, 50 point floor. Both LeBron and AD have shown 60, 65, close to 70 point upside. Like I said, I do prefer to get to Luka on this slate. I think I'd honestly prefer LeBron over AD when there's just a $600 difference. But if I'm playing multiple lineups, I definitely want to get some exposure to a $9,600 Anthony Davis because he has the upside to crush that price any night, no matter how tough the matchup is. But some other power forwards we could look to. The big injury we're going to have to watch here is LaMarcus Aldridge. I talked about DeMar DeRozan. I would really like him if Aldridge is out. Aldridge is questionable heading into Tuesday, so I'll keep you guys updated on that injury status on my Patreon page. I'll have all my up-to-date thoughts in my article, in my Core Plays article. I'll keep you guys updated in the Discord chat as well. Jonathan Isaac, I didn't touch on at small forward, but I really like this spot for him against the Wizards. Aaron Gordon is back, so that definitely cuts into some of Isaac's usage. But he's still been pretty productive. He was productive in that last game against the Warriors when Aaron Gordon played 33 minutes, 39 DraftKings points. This is just a spot where Isaac could go for 20 and 10 and pick up like 4 or 5 blocks like we see him do a lot this season, or we've seen him do a lot this season. There's definitely upside for Jonathan Isaac here. Pace up spot for the Magic. I do have a little bit of interest in him on today's slate. 6,900. Porzingis stands out quite a bit on DraftKings for 6,500 against the Pelicans. Just feels way too cheap for this matchup. I mean, this is a Pelicans team that struggles defensively with no Derek Favors. They're really thin in their front court with no Kendrick Williams as well. That's going to leave like probably either Brandon Ingram or Jackson Hayes or Jahlil Okafor, one of those three guys having to defend Porzingis. That's a matchup that Porzingis should easily be able to win. We know where all the usage is going on this Mavericks team. I mean, it's mostly all going to Luka, but Porzingis is the second highest usage player on the team. So at 6,500, there's plenty of upside for Porzingis at this price tag. I have a lot of interest in this game in general. I mean, I've talked about multiple plays I like from both sides of this game, so I'll probably have maybe like a game stack of this game, a mini game stack. So Porzingis will definitely come into play there at 6,500. And honestly, he just stands out just given his price and the matchup at power forward. But now in this mid-range, I do want to talk about Rui. So he's 5,200 on DraftKings. He had a really big game in their last game against the Clippers. Played 38 minutes, which I believe is the most he's played this season, if I'm not mistaken. Mo Wagner was out for that game, which opened up a lot of minutes in the front court, and we saw Rui soak up a lot of those minutes. He took 23 shot attempts, so like the volume was there for him. He did get a lot of blowout run. I mean, the Wizards lost that game by 25. Rui still played 38 minutes. I need to check their rotation for that game, see when like all the starters subbed out and if Rui came in or if Rui stayed out there. So let me pull up the rotation for this game real quick. So obviously you had Rui start off. He played the entire first quarter, subbed in about halfway through the second quarter, finished out the second quarter, played the entire third quarter, and then he subbed in about halfway through the fourth quarter and closed out the game. You had guys like Bradley Beal, Davis Bertans. These guys all went to the bench, Thomas Bryant. So Rui did get blowout run. I mean, that's obviously something you want to take into account. He did play in the blowout, which definitely is going to help his stats. But still, if there's no Mo Wagner today, with how well Rui played in that last game with Wagner out, I imagine they're going to continue to give him big minutes. It's not that great of a matchup, but he's so cheap at 5,200. If he's going to play probably 36 minutes, which is what I would imagine he plays if Wagner is out, definitely there's opportunity for Rui at this price tag of 5,200. Could easily give you 30 to 35 DraftKings points today. So I like him a lot on DK at 5,200. I mean, on Yahoo, I'm not as interested in Rui. Like, he's relatively priced over there. He's $21. There's probably other power forwards that I would look to over on Yahoo, but he really stands out on DraftKings at 5,200. But under 5K, just talking about power forward values, really not much that I see here. The big injury we need to watch is definitely like the status of Mo Wagner, because that's going to help Rui if Wagner is out. A guy like Daniel House could potentially miss today, which would maybe open up Ben McLemore, but McLemore did get priced up to 5,100 on DraftKings, so I don't really have much interest in him. I think he's still pretty cheap on Yahoo, so maybe I would target him over there. But that's probably all I'll see at power forward. That looks like everything I'm seeing at power forward, just looking at the slate the night before. So let's go ahead and run through center real quick. We'll talk about some of my favorite center options before we end the video. So just looking at the top, you got guys like AD, who I've talked about. You got Drummond for 9,100, Jokic for 8,900, Siakam 8,500. If I'm going to pay up at center, I mean, Davis is the guy that I like the most. You could argue that Drummond's a solid play at 9,100. With how Blake Griffin's just not doing anything right now. I mean, Blake Griffin's numbers this season with the Pistons have been pretty underwhelming. I need to pull up his box score real quick just so you guys can see. I mean, last game against the Spurs, that was a blowout, and he only played 21 minutes, but he just hasn't been scoring much this season. The rebounds have been way down for Blake Griffin. He's overall just having a pretty disappointing season, or just to start the season at least. Drummond's definitely benefited from the poor play from Blake. He had two really good matchups against the Hornets. He played 38 minutes in both those games, had 52 and 48 DraftKings points. We know Drummond is going to dominate on the glass. At 9,100, he's firmly in play. He's not a core play for me by any means. If I'm choosing between him or Davis, just give me AD for $500 more. But I would at least have a little bit of interest in Drummond at 9,100. Whiteside, I like this matchup a lot for him at 8K on DraftKings. I mean, not on DraftKings necessarily at 8K, because you have Capella for a little bit cheaper. I think Capella for $200 cheaper I'd probably rather go to, but I really want to talk about Whiteside over on Yahoo. That's where I have the most interest in him. If we just look at the center position, you got Drummond at 48, Jokic at 38. Jokic at 38 really feels a little bit too cheap, but not a good matchup for him, and he really hasn't been that productive this season. But then you got Capella at 35, and then you have Adebayo and Whiteside both at 31. I really like Whiteside at only $31 on Yahoo. I love his matchup against the Clippers. We've seen this season Clippers can have some success against the or centers can have some success against the Clippers. We saw it last season, just the last few seasons. Centers against the Clippers has been a matchup we've always targeted. They just don't really have like a good defensive big that can run out there. Like Zubac's just not that good of a defender. He's a big guy, but he's not relatively fast. He's pretty slow on his feet. And Montrezl Harrell, although he's very good offensively, he's really small. He's not going to be able to guard a guy like Hassan Whiteside. Big, strong rebounder like Whiteside, a guy that can block a lot of shots. These are the kind of guys I want to target against the Clippers. So have a lot of interest in him at $31 on Yahoo. He's already faced the Clippers once this season, and for what it's worth, in 27 minutes, he put up 47 fantasy points against them, had 17 and 19 with 1 assist, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. It was just overall a very productive game from Whiteside. Honestly, could see a very similar game from him today. So he's going to be a guy that I target quite a bit of on Yahoo at $31. On DraftKings, though, it's probably going to be a little bit tougher to get to him. More of a tournament play at 8K for like an optimal. Like honestly, I think Capella probably projects better for $200 more, so Capella would be the guy I'd go to there. But Whiteside in tournaments on DraftKings, I definitely have some interest in. I just have interest in him in tournaments on both sides overall. But I want to talk about mid-range center. So you do have Porzingis, who I talked about earlier in the video, who I like a lot against the Pelicans for $6,500. I also have a lot of interest in Tristan Thompson today. He's only $6K on DraftKings. I do like this matchup for him against Detroit, against the Pistons. This is a Pistons team that does run pretty big. They usually have one of Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, Christian Wood, one of those 3 guys on the floor at all times. I mean, Tristan Thompson's already playing pretty consistent minutes in competitive games this season. He's played at least 30 minutes just in 4 straight games. All 4 of those games were competitive. This is a game that should stay competitive. I believe it has a close spread right now. Yeah, not the highest total, just a 214.5 total, but it does have a 3-point spread, so should be a close game. Thompson should be out there a ton, having to guard Andre Drummond. They're going to need his size, so he's probably going to be looking at about 32 to 34 minutes. He's a point-per-minute guy. He can score. He can rebound. He can get you the double-double bonus on DraftKings. Projecting him for 32 minutes here probably gets him to like 36 DraftKings points just in terms of projection, and that's really good, getting a guy that projects for probably 6x his salary. I really like Tristan Thompson as a mid-range center. He definitely stands out on DK. On Yahoo, like I'd probably just try and get up to like Whiteside at 31 or Capella at 35. Thompson at $26. I don't think I'm going to be going too much over there. I do prefer to get my exposure to him on DK at 6K. But honestly, I think that's pretty much it for the center position. Like we've got the centers from the Pelicans that I guess I could talk about, but we just don't know what we're going to get here. So you had Jackson Hayes play a lot of minutes off the bench. Jahlil Okafor started their last game against OKC, but he only played 9 minutes in that game. And then Jackson Hayes just kind of played like the rest of the game, pretty much got most of the run. He was productive, put up 25 DraftKings points in 26 minutes. Jackson Hayes has been a pretty productive player just in the amount of time that he's played this season with the Pelicans when he's gotten the minutes. We don't know yet who's going to start at center for the Pelicans, whether it's going to be Hayes or Okafor. Since it was Okafor last game, I imagine they continue to go with him. It'll be interesting to see who they start, but honestly, with both guys being like over 4K, it's not like we're getting great discounts on either one of them. Hayes is $4,400, Okafor is $4,200. They don't really stand out as like top value plays. Now, if they were like $3,500 or $3,300, that'd be a totally different story, but don't really need to go to them at these price tags. So I think that's probably it for the center position, guys. I think we pretty much covered everything. So this is just how I'm looking to approach this slate as of now. These are my first looks at Tuesday's slate. I'm recording this video on Monday night. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys want to check out all my updated content, all my updated core plays, my written article that I'll write Tuesday afternoon, I'll usually post it around Tuesday afternoon, usually around like 2 o'clock Eastern time. This is an article that I put a lot of time in, a lot of hours in every day. It was 11 pages on Monday's slate. It's probably going to be similar. It's going to be a pretty long, in-depth article with a lot of information, talking through some of my favorite plays at each position. So you can check out all my Patreon content, see what I have to offer. Link is down in the description. It's patreon.com/DFS by Noah. Also, if you did enjoy the video, you can drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload a video. Always appreciate that, guys. You can also follow me on Twitter as well, at DFS by Noah. But good luck tonight. Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next video. Peace, guys.